Hello, you're watching the France 24 interview. Well, they're former tailors, firefighters, engineers, and teachers. Ordinary people who run towards the scene of devastation when bombs rain down on civilians in Syria's civil war. Now, since their creation in 2011, the Syrian volunteer rescue workers, known as the White Helmets, have been credited with saving thousands of lives. And as they pull people from the rubble, the White Helmets have also been documenting what's taking place. And that documentation includes footage of a now notorious chemical attack that UN war crimes investigators blame on the Syrian regime. Now, my guest today is Abdulrahman Almawwas. I hope I said that right. You're here in Paris, but you're a spokesman for the White Helmets, and you're very much in touch with what your group is doing on the ground. And from all the reports we are getting, sir, it is, if anything, the fighting's getting worse. It is escalating. Could you tell me specifically who you have on the ground in the past week or so, especially in the province of Idlib and in Eastern Ghouta near Damascus, where we have heard reports of very, very vicious airstrikes against civilian populations?
The last week is one of the worst weeks we faced during the last 6 years. During the last week, we have 400 casualties just in al-Ghouta. 100 of them were children.
Just near Damascus,
yes,
in the suburb of Damascus.
And in the besieged area. You can imagine, under siege, 400 casualties, 100 of them children, just in week. We lost 2 volunteers there from the White Helmets. In the same times in Idlib, there were directly targeting for hospitals, for 3 hospitals, and for the Civil Defense Center in Khan Sheikhoun. We lost 3 volunteers from our colleagues in this center. And also in the same times, there was a chemical attack on north of Syria in Sarakib, in an area called Sarakib. So no Deescalations, no truce, unfortunately, more from blood and casualties.
You're obviously not the only one who has spoken about chemical attack. You just used the word chemical attack. We're talking, I guess, chlorine gas, sarin gas. In your mind, there is no doubt who is responsible. The White Helmets say that this is the regime of Bashar al-Assad. What makes you so certain? What have you seen with regards to chemicals?
We haven't seen it's that directly the regime. We have evidence. We witness and we say the helicopters that dropped these barrels on the civilian homes, and then that gas go from these barrels. So it's by our eyes, it's from the helicopter. And also this evidence goes to OPCW, and they see about also the gym, the community it's from the countries. They confirm that this evidence it's come from the helicopter, from the plane, came from the regime.
Right, so you're saying it's from a helicopter. You're not specifically saying who that helicopter belongs to. If it is the Syrian regime, as a lot of humanitarian organizations say, where are these chemical weapons coming from? It might sound naive, but right, was there not a deal that Bashar al-Assad was supposed to dismantle his chemical arsenal a few years back?
We don't know, but the last week, American says they thought the regime maybe will use the chemical. Unfortunately, after 3 days, we faced a chemical attack in Sarakib, in Idlib. So, and in 2013, they take all chemical weapons from the regime because they use the chemical weapons. So it's complicated and this confused. We don't care actually about who used, as much as there is a lot of people died by these chemical weapons. And also we care, this evidence go to OPCW, and they have to say who is the criminal. This is war crime.
It's
in
the war
2018,
crimes unit, right.
Exactly.
You're the rescuers.
Targeting hospital. If you just leave the chemical weapons, there is targeting for hospitals. Also, this is war crime. And also there is no one say anything.
Now, just to be clear, so you are the rescue workers. You're not there to be prosecutors. That's for the investigators to figure out.
Exactly.
You have also been the target, not you personally, but the White Helmets, of what some have called a disinformation campaign. People who say that the evidence you found, the documentation, damages the narrative that Syria and Russia are promoting in this war. What sort of obstacles have you faced? What sort of disinformation, as some would see it, have you faced?
We faced many like this propaganda or disinformation, or they're trying to attack us because we, as I mentioned, we are the witness of for this criminal war. So actually, we don't care about this talking and this speaking. We just care about these victims and what's happened on the ground. Any UN or the national community, they can send a team to take this evidence to just witness and to do something. But if they will just waiting and just listening what this side talking and this side talking, and a lot of people still killing, that's not the solution.
Are you facing obstacles to being able to do your work because of what I just said? Some people see you perhaps as damaging their own narrative about the war, or finding evidence that they would rather not be found.
This is not the main work of us. The main job, it's save lives. We lost 218 from our volunteers during this job. So our duty to continue this work about search, rescue, firefighting, and last year about the incident for to respect for the chemical weapons.
Right.
To just make something. We don't have like an equipment, it's a specialist equipment for this job, but we're trying by our hands, like in al-Ghouta, it's besieged area. They don't have equipment, and also they don't have enough ambulances. We use fans, we use the basic equipment, trying to save lives.
Whatever you have, basically. How would you compare? You've been doing this now for years. You're a young man, right? You're 30 years old, I think,
yes.
Right? So a quarter of your life has been spent really in this war. How has it, your mission now, what your workers are doing, how does it compare to the earlier years of the war? Is it the same? Is it getting worse?
If we compare 2016 and 17, it was the worst for us. Now, especially the last month, also it was the worst. But in total, all of it, it's worst. It's bad.
It's all bad.
Exactly.
Any day you have to rescue anyone. We have heard a lot on the political level, about this Russia trying to negotiate de-escalation zones, basically to try to diminish the level of violence in certain areas of Syria. From what you're telling me, I would assume that you have not seen
exactly.
a lessening of
we
violence.
haven't seen any truce or any de-escalation.
No de-escalation
No
in the level of violence.
During the last 10 days, there is a lot of attacks in the al-Ghouta, in Idlib, in western countryside of Aleppo, and targeting for infrastructure. You can imagine targeting the hospitals and sometimes the civil defense centers. This is a big problem. Where is the ceasefire if there is targeting for hospitals? It's no excuse for targeting hospitals.
Right. It's a crime of war and violates international treaties. Playing devil's advocate, there are critics who say, well, why are the White Helmets only working mostly in rebel enclaves, pockets of territories where the rebels have control? Why aren't they more evenly distributed throughout Syria? How do you respond to those?
We would like to work for all Syrians, and this is our plan to work in whole Syria. But till now, we are targeting directly. We're trying to work near the borders between sides,
right,
to fixing water network. But unfortunately, they targeting and shooting the driver of the machine there. And also, we're trying to open road. When the evacuation from Aleppo to countryside, also they shooting the driver and he is injured. Also, that's not about just White Helmets. We have a lot of NGO like SAMS, like also USSOM, many of them trying to work in another areas, but that's controlled by one side, by one hand. They don't let anyone to enter there. We help and we rescue all Syrian people and many different. We don't look about if there is for this side or another side, and we document about this. And if you say last minute in Aleppo also, we faced many these issues.
You're here in France. You've met with the French president's advisors, Emmanuel Macron, and what is the main message you're bringing to France? I know you've been here before. I know that this is a message you have been trying to communicate for years now. What's new? What have you brought today?
We just ask for not let down us again. It's not to ask them, but we ask all the international community. Don't let us Syrian people again. We faced many disappointed disappointing in Aleppo, and now we don't want to repeat the same scenario in al-Ghouta and after next year in Idlib. The problem, the time it's come more worst, and it's go with loss of a lot of lives. So we just ask them to, if they want to promise us, just to promise us with actions. In the UN, in the international community, every time, just speech.
Something concrete.
Exactly.
If I had to ask you finally, when do your workers, the White Helmets, when are they going to be able to resume their civilian lives, go back to those jobs I was talking about, teachers, engineers, tailors?
After reconstruction, because our plan is to be member of reconstruction our country, then we will back to our job, and we hope it's come today, not tomorrow.
So you have a little bit of hope, perhaps, despite this fighting.
Of course, and we have this hope. If we don't, we will not continue and resume.
Abdulrahman Almawwas, you're spokesperson for the White Helmets. I thank you for taking time today. You're obviously here in France, trying to implore, I guess is the word, implore Western leaders to take a stance in this war. Your workers, you've seen hundreds of casualties, you say, in the past, in recent weeks. I thank you for coming today, and obviously we all wish for a speedy end to this war. Thanks to all of you for watching the interview.